Hey guys, it's model making time, and today we are at the NEC in Birmingham. We are here for Keymodel Live, which is primarily a train sort of event with lots of different layouts and vendors, but also has a scale modelling contingent, along with a couple of other things as well, such as Scalextric and RC cars. It's a really interesting event, and I've been coming since it started 2 years ago, so this is my third time here. I've actually already gone around half the show, and during the course of this video we're going to take you through all of the sort of layouts and scale model stands that are here. We'll show you a selection of some of the traders and maybe what I got, because I've already bought some stuff today already. So without further ado, let's go into Keymodel Live 2026. And we start off with Welby Lane RTC, which stands for Railway Technical Centre. Now, as we go through the show, I'm going to try and capture the overall vibe of each layout as much as I can, and that means looking beyond just the locomotives, the trains themselves, and looking at what's in the background, giving you a peek around. That might include some pictures, but is mostly going to be video, just slowly panning around so you can see it. Welby Lane is meant to represent the testing of high-speed diesel train and advanced passenger trains, the APT, as you can see there. A very infamous project in British railway innovation. I really love this layout, and that it went beyond just sort of the experimentals and featured a rich sort of sidings to both of them, sort of the grass and foliage and the sort of disused buildings around it. This is a really cool slice of British rail innovation history. From sort of experimental of Britain to what was described, or I overheard was described, as sort of Germany meets Poland, sort of in the Cold War era. And this is a beautiful layout. I adored this, and I took videos and photos from many angles. There's so many different things on offer here, and having a sort of ambivalence to whether or not it's a particular country and is more general vibe of an area means you can add in whatever you fancy. The trams at the back were really cool, and I overheard that they were from a magazine layout rather than from a sort of particular vendor, and they're actually quite hard to get hold of now. I really love this scene. There was so much to see. It really felt like a real city with a tram and train platform. As you may know from my other years of visiting Keymodel Live, I really enjoy things that aren't just Britain too. And that's not to say I don't love the British layouts, of course I do, but there's just something magical about seeing another world entirely, something so different and unique that you don't see in your everyday life or in your childhood. And this definitely fit that box for me. from Eastern Europe to the United States of America. This was a very different layout to most of the things that we would see during the course of Keymodel World Live. America has a really weird train infrastructure, at least to me at least, because it's not sort of like super passenger forward. It's much more sort of goods and services oriented. I've watched a few videos like Sophia on YouTube, like a really big YouTuber who like did sort of cross-country train journeys, and it's fascinating how different it is in America. And it was really cool to be able to explore that on such a large layout. This layout sort of went round a corner, so you had this sort of town area and then it diverged into more of a yard area. It was really cool to see the difference between the two, and I really liked having this sort of train crossing with the flashing lights. It just added so much to the effect. There were sound effects on some of the logos too, but unfortunately I forgot to take my shotgun mic with me, so we're stuck without the sound effects, but you can imagine them, and hopefully you'll see them when you next see the layout. Inevitably, I'm probably going to say this wrong, but this is Tanzinowo. This is a fictional Polish layout, and again, I love anything with international flair. According to its description, it follows closely the layout of a station of, and I'm definitely saying this wrong, Sklarska Porebagona. I definitely said that wrong, but hopefully you understand what I meant. I definitely recommend reading about it online. It's a really fascinating layout and has so much detail in this. It really felt like you were sort of, I'm assuming it's in sort of Polish countryside. This has taken sort of 10 years for them to complete this project from, again, looking at the description online, and it was worth every moment because this was stunning. It was like a fresh slice of Polish countryside. Burton-on-Trent is known for brewing for a lot of people, and you often hear people talking about when brewers moved away from the area and how tastes change, and this represents that from the 1950s era, roughly. You can see barrels lining the sides for the train to pick up, and the brewery at the back as well, which you can peek inside the door. There's also a brewery over to the left, which you can see inside and see the distillery. This was such a cool idea, having it be within a barrel itself. I thought this was absolutely fantastic. The camera, how I've used it, probably seems a bit darker and moodier than it actually was. It's probably a bit lighter, so you may want to check out the Keymodel World website to see it in a more light setting, but I decided not to change any of it because this showed the light effects more and felt really moody, and I just kind of love it, not gonna lie. Overlord, or Operation Overlord, to give it its full name, is more commonly known as D-Day, and this shows sort of the loading of boats, ships, and the massive sort of rail logistics behind that. I really like this because it simplified it in a way where you can really see the giant scale of Operation Overlord. And bear in mind, this is obviously only one section of it. This was the largest naval invasion in history. You can really sense the scale of that here. And they showed different sort of aspects, from sort of tank transport, sort of on top of the boats, to some that are loaded up inside. That one there features some Churchills and Shermans. You also saw other vessels here as well, and I actually kind of thought it was really cool that there was something that had so many boats, because they are so often neglected in scale modelling. This was just such a unique and amazing concept, and it's so important to never forget history and what people lost in order for us to be the way we are. So I absolutely love this stand, and there's actually a World War I stand as well that we'll see later on, called Somewhere in France. The other thing as well is this actually shows the sort of massive variety of modelling that's available, including some of the Airfix vintage classics that have been more recently released as well. I really like that the buildings in the background as well were 3D too. Often they can be sort of more, I guess, sort of vignettes, sort of 2.5D to even just flat out pictures. This was obviously one of the largest displays that we'll see during the course of today, and it definitely deserved its spot in the centre light. It was just absolutely incredible, and I hope I've done enough so that you can see how incredible this looked. I really liked Hazel Combe. And this features one of the flat backgrounds I mentioned earlier, but does so in such a great way. It just really adds to the overall feel of the layout. And I think particularly when you're using larger scales, which this one is an O gauge scale compared to the 1/72, 1/76 scale of the Overlord, it can be much more difficult to have fully 3D buildings. This has a couple and a few which I sort of would say are 2.5D, and overall this layout is really cool. Its description, as described by Keymodel World, is covering the period of 1970s when hydraulics ruled the rails until their demise in 1977, and states that it includes class 35, 42 and 52, alongside the new order of diesel electric traction. Now, as many of you may know, I am not someone who is like super knowledgeable about trains. I will recognize a few, but it's something I really like seeing, even though I'm not sort of super knowledgeable about it. And so if you do want to read up on any of the displays that you see here today, or the layouts that you see here today, make sure you head over to the Keymodel World Live website, where you can actually read the descriptions of, I think, every single layout that's here today. It's really cool. I've actually found it really good to sort of understand some of the layouts in a bit more detail. And yeah, just awesome. Going slightly further back in time and back to double O gauge as well, we have this lovely layout of Witham, which is a sort of western region set in the 1960s. It's a fictitious layout and I absolutely love it. Like, I love it. It's got that perfect combination of quaint British countryside alongside a town to go with it, complete with flashing crossing lights. I love this. It's really easy to put grass onto a layout. It's harder to make it seem realistic, including the foliage, but they really managed to bring the whole thing to life here. You can definitely tell that this was set in the summertime, and I just loved it. It just feels so cute and just picturesque. Oh, I love it. So I'll just stop talking and let you enjoy it too, and maybe just pretend you're on holiday riding one of these trains. As you can tell by the drama in the background of this, or at least when I zoom out, this is a Scottish layout, and well, I mean, ScotRail gives it away there. They're a frequent passenger carrying unit here, but as you saw earlier as well, there's also some freight work too. This was a really unique layout and contrasts the larger, more industrial Scottish layout we saw. I think it was last year, it might have been the first year, I can't quite remember. I like the addition of the sort of the street lights and the lights on the station, but also the network rail vans with sort of just some of the material over the side as well. This felt like it had a lot of depth, and I think that was helped by the trees and then the forest behind it. I thought this was a really clever layout. I can't explain why, but this one felt more, I don't know, stylized than just realism itself. I can't quite explain it, but this is White Oak Light Railway. Apparently this is 16.5 gauge or NG7. Again, I'm not the train person, but just thought I'd let you know that. And it's a narrow gauge railway, as you can very much tell, and it's meant to be just off the Thames estuary in Kent. And yeah, as I say, I can't explain it, but it just very much feels sort of very stylized and almost like it could be in Tugs or Thomas the Tank Engine. And I don't mean that in a really bad way, I mean that genuinely, as I just think this looks beautiful. Quite honestly, it could just be the lighting, and it may be that none of you see that, but it's just the vibe it gave to me. So this is one of the layouts I can't actually seem to find on Keymodel website, but well, I managed to find a bit more information about it over on their Facebook and the Hornby TT120 group. And well, this was one of the first 120 layouts I saw at the show. This is Abaware, and I thought this was really cute and really showed how great TT120 could be. It's just a shame about the pricing. But I really liked this layout. It had a diversity of trains and locomotives going through it, including one of my favourites that you'll see right at the end. This was a dynamic display on a small scale with a lovely sort of village scene leading up to the local station, which was really busy. They also had their laptop on top of the display as well, so that you could see how this was all functioning. It was really incredible to see, and the fact that this was on such a micro level is just astounding. Well, something a little different here is Scalextric. Now, obviously Scalextric has been in the news recently for their issues and separation from Hornby. And, well, it's an interesting brand with a long history, but I don't think I know anyone now who has Scalextric, mainly because it takes up so much space, even compared to a train layout, and that and the cost, it can be an expensive hobby. But it was really cool to see it here today, and I heard them talking about how many people you can have on a track. And with third-party sort of units, you can have up to 20, I think they said, on one track, which is incredible. This was something that was at the last year's show as well, and it was cool to see it return again, and I hope we do get to see another iteration of this next year. Or something that is what it says on the tin is RC Drift International, remote control drifting, which was going on all day. So if this was really your jam, you could genuinely sit and watch this all day. I thought this was so cool. I used to like remote control cars, and this definitely would have been my thing if I even knew this was a thing when I was much younger. This was probably my favorite livery that I saw on the racetrack all day, but honestly, every single car on there was beautiful, and it was just so cool. I had no idea this was a thing, and I loved just watching it. It was just so cool. It's so unique. What a beautiful way to play with remote control cars. I love it. And you saw some trophies over on the side as well. Like, these are really accomplished remote control drivers. So yeah, this was just so cool to see. Something so unique. I guess like the Lego thing last year, this model show just attracts so much creativity and uniqueness. Every model show has a big business, and there were two train companies that were really well known, which was Hornby and Bachman. This was Hornby, this was their TT120 layout. Obviously they've just announced new sets for this. Again, I am not the person for the news for this, so go and check out other channels for all the news on everything that's recently been released and announced. But of course, where there is Hornby as well, there is Airfix, and we will have a look at their stand as well. I will say though, I am getting more and more tempted by TT120. It's something that really is attractive to me because it just takes up so little room, but the cost of it is just prohibitive to me at the moment. But as I said, we also had Airfix here, and they had their new Skyvan. I say new, it's a vintage classic, but they included that new livery there, which had different props on, and they will be released as a free to print or free to download and print STL on the website as well. They said that will be up there relatively soon alongside the kit. If you want a more in-depth view of Airfix's releases this year, I did a whole video going through their product launches, and you can also see a lot of this at Bolton as well in a bit more detail. It was really cool to see them at the show, and everything so proudly on display. I really love Airfix, and to me they are the brand that makes Hornby. Shout out to all the Airfix reps as well, like you guys. I don't know how you go to every show and probably get the same question over and over again, and you always do it with a smile on face. You guys are amazing, and it's been so nice to sort of speak to you all and interview some of you over the years as well, so thank you for that. They also had the Airfix Club kit that you will have seen on display there as well, the Vigan and the Tiger Moth. I've made the Vigan and I've got that a video on that where I built the whole thing and an initial reaction to the kit as well, so make sure you go and check those out after this too. They also had their Eurofighter double set, so Eurofighter and Typhoon, Eurofighter and Tucano, and I really loved this. I adore the Tucano and I'm glad that it's back, at least in a set. We then head on over to Bachman, and as I have already said in this video, I'm not the train girly, so if you want to know everything about the sort of the releases that have come out and everything about sort of what may be new, obviously some of the things will say new, but I don't know enough about them to give you sort of a knowledgeable insight onto whether it's great, whether it's things you want to get or not. I just know whether I think it's pretty or is something that I would like to have. So go and check out some other channels. They'll probably be in the recommended videos. Like, they will be able to explain it a lot better than I can, but I'll let you just sit and see everything that sort of Bachman had to offer. This is apparently a vintage sort of layout, originally from the 90s, and it's been updated to be in the 2000s era. It's a fictional quarry and it's apparently based on Mendip Hills, which is near to Watley and Marehead quarries. This was definitely one of the heavier scenes that we see at the show this year, but I thought it was incredible how much they captured the reality of a quarry. The buildings themselves had that unique, I don't know, like corrugated structure to them, and everything just seemed to fit in place. I really like seeing things like this because it's not things that I think a lot of people think of when they think of railway layouts. To people like me who aren't in the scene as much, it's a really unique perspective on railway modelling. As someone who has some farming back in my family, I really like seeing anything with animals and farming involved, and that includes this display here from Charnwood. Now, this was a really big display, and I've tried to capture as much of it as I can and capture the unique vibe and attitude of this. It's like a whole circle. Well, it's not, it's like a half oval. But it goes from everything from sort of the town to the train station. It has like little shops and like corner shops. It's just so cool. And there's also a chippy buried in there. There's little things in the gardens. It's just such a cool and beautiful layout. This is a 50 by 13 foot display, so it's an absolute giant. Definitely not one that most people could have in their house. And the buildings have all been built out of cardboard, and apparently the viaduct, the Grace Du Viaduct, was constructed with individual bricks made of model clay. There's so much more for you to read up about this, again, on the Keymodel website. I strongly urge you to go and read up on there. It's incredible. But instead of me just going on and on, I'll let you just sit and enjoy the beauty that is this layout, which is Charnwood, set in the 1950s to 60s. One of the N-gauge layouts here is Pettleworth, or the Pettleworth Downs, set in the 1940s and 50s. This is a really cool layout. Again, N-gauge, much like TT120 to me, is really appealing just for how much you can fit into a space, and it makes it much more viable at home. And this was meant to be a stretch of rural mainline in the south of England in that time period. I think they definitely captured that picturesque postcard vibe of the sort of British countryside, and I love that they put little animals out into the countryside as well. This is a really pretty layout, and I just love it. We then head on over to Leicester Junction, which, I mean, the name kind of tells you what it is, but it's based on Leicester Junction, or apparently as it appeared on timetables was Burton Leicester Junction. And it's based on the real location, which is near to Burton-on-Trent, which you may recognise from an earlier layout that we looked at. This was a really well-themed layout, from the workmen working on the railway to the vans and lorries tucked in behind the factories, and we also had sort of some passengers and some people just sort of walking down the street. It really brought the whole layout to life, and it's such a pretty layout too, even though there are some really heavy locomotives carrying either passengers or also freight. Over in the background as well, you can see the giant power plants looming over sort of the residential areas. It really adds to that sort of 80s feel. This is Two Bridges Upsidings and is a Southern Region 90s era train layout. This was based on the owners' sort of commuting year, so very much drawing on their own experiences. I open it on clearly freight rather than passengers, and obviously these go a lot slower, so you're just seeing this go past, and it's quite a long layout. And then we get another one come out of the tunnels. This again is a different take on a layout because it's not focusing on like a town or a village or like anything in particular. It really is sort of like just a standard railway, and it's just so cool to see this. You see sort of the caravans in the back of residential areas at the back and the parking lot. It's just so cool to see. Now, this is based in the northeast, and it's meant to be in Northumberland. This is the village of Craster, meant to be a fishing village, as you can tell from all the little boats that are going around sort of the dock. And this was such a pretty layout. I took some pictures as well. My camera work's not the best on this, and I really do apologise, because this is such a great layout. So much detail and thought was put into this as well, as you can see from the pictures here. It really does feel like a coastal town. There's a beautiful station that's been put out, and this is meant to be set in the 50s and 60s, as you can probably tell from the bus there as well, which is heading over to Newcastle, again fitting the sort of era and the location. This was such a cool layout, very different to everything else that was on display, because it had that sort of coastal vibe to it. There was something sat on top of this packaging, but I couldn't quite work it out, and clearly my picture was not as good as it should have been. Apparently all the buildings were scratch built by a club member and based on buildings in the Craster area, and yeah, I'll let you enjoy. This layout is Redbridge Wharf, and I love that boat for having like actual steam coming out. What an absolute like amazing little detail to add in. Now this is Redbridge Wharf, and it's meant to be the area of Redbridge in Hampshire, and this was just again incredibly unique. The water effects on this look amazing. Water is so hard to do well, and I always respect anyone who even attempts to do it, let alone like absolutely nailing it. And you can tell that this features like as like a large part of their sort of diorama / layout overall. There are little locomotives all going over in the background almost of this layout as the water takes the forefront. The set is in 1965, so it's, you know, not a super modern era layout, and has that postcard picturesque vibe to it. Can definitely imagine some oil paintings of these going over the bridges in particular. It goes from sort of a more dock and loading area to this really pretty countryside. It's a really good sort of dynamic display. A Great Western Railways line is Buckley. This is set in the 1930s, so one of the earlier sort of layouts that we will see during the course of today, and it's in 00 gauge layout. They again captured the vibe of this absolutely perfectly. I keep saying everything is like kind of postcard style, but it still fits that. It really does show the different era compared to some of the other stations that we see as well. This apparently has a single line with a loop at the platform and a goods loop around the back of the platform too. It's not entirely based on a real layout, and it does include that engine shed that you've just seen there as well, and then this countryside off into the corner, which I thought was a really nice touch. Again, it adds so much depth to the layout. And again, we see cattle being loaded on, which I think is really unique. Obviously, we've seen it, I think, on 2 layouts, not many of them. And it's definitely not something I think I remember from many other years either. We then had to a quarry in a much smaller scale. This is an N gauge. Now, Smaudel is in between Buxton and Chapel on the Frith. I actually used to live not a million miles away from Buxton at one point, so it's an area I'm somewhat familiar with. The club said that the layout is not based on the actual quarry, but is a description of what it could have been in the 90s, 70s, and 80s. I will never get over the amount of detail that people can put into N gauge. It's absolutely mind-blowing. I'm sorry that you can see sort of some of the wood over the siding there as well, but I was trying to get sort of everything in frame so you could just sort of get the overall vibe of this. It's just such a cool layout. The opening line of the description of this is the beginning of privatisation. Millerfield Yard has a variety of liveries and is set in the early 90s to early 2000s. This is another N-gauge layout and is meant to be the southern region around London. which means that there could be so much on offer on this display here. I really like the multi-levels of this, and the crane kept moving just because the actual like table, or I guess the overall area, was moving a little bit, but that really just added more life to this overall display, so that was kind of a happy accident, I suppose. But yeah, I really like this. Again, like having sort of the shops and the pubs and stuff like down below, with again another track down there, it just adds so much. I don't know, I think I always think having multiple levels just adds so much. I think of like Miniature Wonderland, and when they have the multiple levels of like the trams down below, the trains up above, or even just multiple train levels, it always just adds so much for you to look at as sort of a viewer to the experience, and I hope I captured that all for you here. I thought I took much more footage of this one, but this is Llanthwyn, and this beautiful little layout had this pub with like a viewing experience overlooking the railway line. This is meant to be set in sort of mid-Wales in the 1990s, and it definitely has that vibe to me. I thought this was really pretty layout, and I don't know why I didn't capture more pictures and video of it. I thought I did, so I can only apologise for that. Definitely, if you get a chance to go see this one, it's so pretty. Another foreign affair here is the Japanese-themed Ishinaka. Now, this, I think, is meant to be an Evangelion-themed train and looked really cool, and unfortunately I missed it departing the station, but I did capture the rear end of it flying off over to the train exchange for it to be replaced by another train. This was a constantly moving line, and also featured Thomas and Percy in the back from Thomas the Tank Engine 2. This was actually for sale, which was crazy because it's such a beautiful little layout, and I just loved watching this. I watched many trains go back and forth on this, and I captured a few of them for you to see, so sit back and enjoy. At 16 foot long, this is another giant display in 00 gauge. This is one of the more modern displays as well, actually set in the 2010s. So
Wow, I feel really old. That's actually still a decade ago. Oh my gosh. There's not much written about what this is meant to be representing. It just says that it's meant to be a lot of different locomotives that are seen on Britain's railway around today. It's an entirely fictitious layout, but there's a lot of detail on here. Again, I love seeing like workmen in the background, a little forklift going off. It's just very well detailed, and the skate park is just extremely unique. And that green fence that everyone in Britain just knows. Right, we head off for something different now with Tamiya Trucking. I think this was what was present last year as well. They have an excavator over off in the back. They had a little railway on this as well with a live crossing that you can just see there. So sadly someone watching print just as it was going, but you'll see it go back and the crossing go back over the other way as well. This is such a cool experience, I think, and you'll see it right at the end of this section. It's a little bit as well for people to try it out. It seemed like it was a little like test track for people to see what it was like to drive the trucks. And this again just goes on all day. It's something you can just go and vibe and sit and watch. It's really cool. And there's just so much going on everywhere you look. Now for what I worry may end up being Mr. Modeler's new obsession, the Model Bus Federation. They had an entire section on the B network. Now the B network is new. It's actually only just sort of properly come in across various parts of Greater Manchester, having come in a couple of years ago overall, and they're expanding that to trains soon as well. But what it has become very well known for in Manchester is the yellow buses, which you hear a lot of different descriptions of what people think that yellow looks like. I'm yet to hear someone go, oh my god, I love it, even though I do. And it matches the trams that they have in Manchester as well. And although this isn't that, this was a little beautiful a bus depot. And they said that this was white metal and plastic kits or buses that they've then sort of customized and hand painted. But next to it was the B network one as well, which was made by someone who actually lives within the B network area. I thought this was really cool. I have no interest in buses or coaches at all, and yet I absolutely love seeing these, and the next one that we'll see as well, which is Crossways. as said, this is Crossways of Gloucestershire, and I used to live near to Gloucestershire at one point and used to take, I think it was Ellis coaches, and this reminds me of that quite a lot, though that's not actually in Gloucestershire, I don't think. So, but yeah, it reminds me very much of that. This is, again, really cool. There's so much variety on display here. A couple of little sort of dioramas or layouts, and it's just sort of their own thing that they've decided to focus on and sort of custom make their buses and coaches. It's really cool. And I do like that there's some crossover between the two of them as well, featuring each other. It's really cool to see. Just such a unique thing, and just shows no matter what you're into, there's always people out there who are into it too, and you should always follow your passion because you'll love it. And I love seeing it too. This is Making Tracks, Watford, Junction and Milton Keynes, and you may remember a few years ago this became a world record holder, and it continues to grow in detail and I guess in sort of being more reliable too. It's just such a beautiful layout, and I honestly could have just sat and watched this all day. I had to film, unfortunately, so I couldn't. And there was also the really pretty Pride livery on there as well for Avanti West Coast service. So this is one of my favourite layouts just because of its huge diversity in sort of locomotives / trains that are on there, but also just in how incredibly detailed it is. Like, honestly, it's one of the best things about going to the show every year, and I hope this features every single year because it's just absolutely astoundingly beautiful. I mentioned earlier on that we would get to see a World War I themed layout, and this is it. I will say I feel like the trains do not feature as the main aspect, but that can be the case, that you build a diorama that features trains more than a layout that features other things. This really shows the horror and loss that was experienced in war. Having a graveyard featured at the very far end of the layout too. This is absolutely amazing. It had full-on sound effects as well. Unfortunately, you get a lot of the background noise of just being in one of the exhibition halls. Again, I forgot my shotgun mic, which was entirely on me. So you unfortunately can't hear it all. But I thought this was incredible. Like, very moving too, actually. Again, important to remember what happened. And this was just an exemplary way to show sort of the cost and the real human cost of war. Fitzwilliam Basin is meant to be set in South Yorkshire in the 1930s and 40s, and definitely captures that really heavy coal-infused industrial vibe of the era. It says on their description that no narrow gauge railway existed in this area, but if it had, it could have looked like this. And they definitely have managed to create an absolutely beautifully unique diorama. This is a fictional 09 gauge, which was inspired by buildings in and around Elscar village in South Yorkshire. Again, go and read up fully of it on the Keymodel Wildlife website, but I thought this was just very unique, very cool. Again, just shows whatever you're into, do it, because you'll make something beautiful. Set in, I guess, like the early 2000s, or at least when I was speaking to them, they said at the moment the stock that was on there was like early to mid 2000s, as you can tell by having Virgin trains. Project New Street is the western end of Birmingham New Street, and it had announcements going on as well. And I did hear someone ask the guy who was running it at the time, oh, did the announcements match up with the trains? And they said, no, I'm not that clever. And I thought that was just an adorable moment. This is a really cool layout. It's really cool seeing, again, just different liveries and everyone's definitely favourite station next to London Euston, Birmingham New Street. I swear Birmingham Street is just never going to be finished. It always has something going on with it. And I actually had to go through here to get to, obviously, the show today. allowing you to see the wonders of, well, the line from London to Bristol is Bristol Avon Bridge, set in the 80s and 90s. And, well, this is a line actually I grew up seeing a lot of, so this was a really cool line for me to see personally. It's double O gauge as well, and it has a mixture of both sort of mail being transported and parcels, but also a lot of passengers as well, and the occasional freight too. I thought this was really cool to see, again, just for personal reasons, and it just again shows that there's so much variety on display at these shows. Set in the 1950s, this might be the only one we see that has sort of a London Underground train, I believe. At least it might be the only one I think I've seen on here in its distinctive livery. This is a fictitious through station in the suburbs of London in the 1950s, and it definitely captures that vibe perfectly because I knew where I was as soon as I saw it. And it features this great high-rise flat at the back, which is again like half built in, and it just looks so cool, including the washing on the line. This is meant to be set on a seaside town on the northwest coast between Lancaster and Carnforth, and it's in a transition era. So this is set between, sort of but in the 60s when steam was sort of reaching the end of its era. This was a really cool seaside, and they had so much going on there. Again, almost the trains became part of the ambience rather than necessarily the main focus, because there was a lot going on. And this very much reminds me of the stuff like in Miniature Wonderland, because there's just like really unique things happening, from people sort of in the water to people having a donkey ride and people sitting in front of their sort of houses and like little animals scattered around. This is an incredibly detailed, well thought out, well executed layout, and I just love it. This may well be the earliest era and is meant to be the 1920s era in East Kent. This is meant to be showing what can be done on a narrow scale model scenery baseboard, and it creates a really small layout, but there's so much going on. Even though it's a rural area, because of like the animals and the beautiful scenery, including things like sunflowers, it just adds so much for the eye to see. It really makes you think it is much bigger than it is, and it's very well executed. We head over to the 50s again here for Foldham's on the Norfolk-Suffolk coast, and it's a balance between distribution depot and local agriculture. Apparently the whole layout actually folds in half, and well, that's the name Fold. And yeah, this is really cool. Again, like, it's such a rural, picturesque background. We go back to that postcard moment. But again, they've detailed it really well. And even if there isn't the movement, they added height differences with the van and the car going over on the bridge, over the railway line, which again just adds that more depth to the layout. I am so sorry. And actually, I misspoke earlier when I said London Underground. I captured this on my way out of the actual show because we just somehow missed this one. Or I missed this one going round. This had moving vehicles, which is always my favourite thing when I go to Winchell Wonderland. So yeah, I'm really sorry this one perhaps doesn't have as good footage. It was done on my phone instead, but this layout was incredible. I wish I had had more time, because I was actually on a time crunch when I was leaving here to go get my train, which ended up being really delayed. So it turns out I probably could have stayed and filmed more, but I didn't know that at the time. But yeah, I'm really sorry, Harfield Road, that I didn't get this in as much detail as I should have done, but I love this layout. This is one of my favourites of the day, hands down. Right, well, we've made it all the way through all of the trains here, and we're just going to have a little breather watching the Tamiya demonstration, where people could test out some, well, monster trucks. And then we will head into all of the scale model clubs who attended the show, which makes up about maybe half of the hall this year. It's definitely grown compared to the first year. So yeah, if you need to pause it here, do so, have a little break, and then we'll go through all the model clubs. We start with Jaguar, the Jaguar and Harrier SIG, which I feel like is increasingly getting more and more stuff that isn't Jaguar and Harrier, and I'm completely okay with that. I don't care whether it's a SIG or whether it does other stuff. It's all of such exceptional quality, and including that Lego space rocket, which I didn't even realise was Lego the first time I went past it. So that just shows how well done that was done. I tried to get different pictures of the Harriers and Jaguars compared to what I've done before. Obviously, I see this SIG quite a lot throughout my journeys of the year, but I hope you all enjoy everything you see here, because I know I did. Oh, the B36. Oh, I need to make mine. I just need to do it, don't I? Every time I see it, I'm like, it's taunting me. need to finish doing mine. I started doing a B36 on live streams. If you subscribe to the channel, you'll hopefully see me do it at some point. I promise I will. I'm going back to it. I finished the model I've just done and I'm getting back in the vibe. But yeah, I love this SIG. The US Air Force SIG, they always manage to do something different, despite the fact it's obviously just looking at United States Air Force, whether it's having a different theming, whether it's just building new models and different liveries, it's always something different on here. And I mean, the US Air Force has such a plethora of aircraft to choose from. There's always something that you can just sort of focus on. Obviously, we've seen them previously have like a U2 theme. Yeah, amazing stand, always delivers on quality and quantity, and it's not an either or, it's definitely both of them. Yeah, if you see this, definitely go and check it out. We then head over to Broughton Scale Model Club, who build exceptional quality dioramas. Now, I will say I probably got better footage of this in my Bolton video, so go and check that out. I see clubs, again, sometimes quite often, so I try and capture different things. And this time I did take some pictures of things like the spaceship from Prometheus, which, gonna be honest, I completely forgot that movie existed, even though I remember it being such a massive deal when it came out, and everyone just remembers that scene where she's running away from the ship and everyone's like, just walk to the side, bestie. But again, their quality is absolutely exceptional. There's a combination of 3D printed models and some scratch built elements. It's just exceptional quality. I really recommend, if you see their stand, to just spend some time getting really up close and looking at them, because it's mind-blowing, the level of detail and quality here. Last year, this club was in the darkness, and this year they got to be in the light. So that's really good redemption for them. The hall was much better this year for lighting, and a South African Vulcan is not something I ever expected to see, but why am I so obsessed with it? I had a good old chat with Southend Model Club, who are extremely lovely people, and you should go and chat to them next time you see them at a show. I really loved their display because it was a good variety of sort of naval, aircraft, fiction, and then there was just an incredible bus diorama that was like a bus cafe, which is something they kind of have at the venue too. I really love this display, and I'm just going to let you enjoy it. Sorry to jump scare you, but yeah, I'll always be a Victor girly over the Vulcan. It's just, honestly, she's just so much prettier. We then head over to What If, where we think about what happened and what could have been. This is a fantastic SIG, and it can be anything. Like, you can see there's a South African hunter. Why are we in the South African era apparently in modelling? But yeah, it can be a South African hunter, or it can be something like that was cancelled or never even existed. I really love seeing this display because there's always something new and something that you'd never thought of. Fenland and Spalding are up next, and again have a unique variety of aircraft, including a couple with folded wings, which I have never done anything with folded wings, and I have like such an aversion to doing it. I always want to pick the wings out, so I really love seeing it when they are actually folded. There was a lovely level of detail on these vehicles as well, and whilst it might not be in my particular area of interest, there is a great selection of Gundam at the top too. What a dynamic display. Then heading over to Sutton Coldfield. I really need to go to one of their shows again because I went to one many years ago, and I mean like probably a decade ago, which makes me feel really old. This fantastic F4 in the center with the engine cowling taken off so you can have a look inside the engine as well there, and they had some Warhammer featuring it in the middle as well. Did actually have a chat with a couple of people at the show talking about how Warhammer and wargaming in general is becoming more and more prevalent within the modelling community alongside Gunpla, and I think that's a great thing. It's bringing more and more people into the hobby. I really liked the 707 at the top there as well, so I did get a little cheeky picture of that as well. West Norfolk brought the trains here as well, and I wish I had taken a picture of that, and I stupidly didn't. And that's what happens sometimes. But they had a fantastic display overall anyway, with a great variety of aircraft and the trains that we saw previously. I really liked the two Valiants, and I'm pretty sure I've actually taken pictures of these before, but well, you're going to get pictures of them again. They also had a load of aircraft that were on sort of their roundel bases, which I really adore, especially when it's things that are more unusual, like the Avia license built ME-262 that was built after the war and used by the Czech Air Force. There's, so much going on this display. It's amazing. Solihull had an amazing Thunderbird 3, and they also had these little Roman figures which are almost hidden behind the tank, but I actually think they were really unique, something I don't think I really saw on any of the other displays this year. Go and check out my video at the Stamford model show, because that has some boats being opened up, and I know nothing about powerboat modelling, but that showed me a lot. I just let you have a look at them because it's not something I know a lot about, but I always wanted to have a remote control boat, and these look really cool. At this point, I guess friends of the channel, IBMS Stafford, and they have promised that they will deliver at Telford this year. So, well, we'll have to see what they deliver there. Their stand, as it is today, still features a variety of fantastic models, including some Formula One vehicles that you will see later that have a lot of scratch-built components around the engine because they weren't detailed enough or were slightly incorrect, as the model was explaining to me. They also had this FW200 Condor in the middle, which had a startup procedure, so we're going to watch all of the engines light up as we go. Again, this is one of the friendliest clubs you'll ever meet, so if you ever see them at a show, they are incredibly lovely people, and it's part of why, even though like right now I'm not in the best of health, I love going to shows because getting to speak to people who are just so lovely, it always just brings a smile to your face. So yeah, shout out to Stafford IBMS. Models for Heroes are a great charity that help veterans, I guess, not necessarily beat, but power through their mental health difficulties through the power of and meditative power of modelling, providing model kits and accessories to people who have been in the armed forces to be able to take part in the hobby, which sometimes isn't accessible to everyone. Perhaps the most unique, maybe, stand of the show was Milton Cheney, who have basically just like a giant festival. It had music going. Obviously, we've not got that here for copyright reasons, but it was amazing. These are all 3D printed models that they then printed and painted. And they had everything from like Beyonce to Ozzy Osbourne to My Chemical Romance. I took a picture of a couple of my favorites, which included Sabrina Carpenter, Lady Gaga, and My Chemical Romance. This was amazing. And they said it's going to be even bigger and better at Telford, and I cannot wait to see it. What a unique and amazing idea. Three very different bombers dominated the table here, with a large-scale Lancaster, B-17 and a Heinkel HE-111. I've actually only built one of them, which is a Lancaster in 1/72nd scale, and I hope to build all the others at some point too. They had a variety of models with, I guess, a leaning towards aviation, but also things like a motorcycle, as you may have seen in the corner too. The Really Wild SIG were probably my favourite table at scale model world because their theming was so intense. And I love that they have this middle section, which I've tried to not show too much of because there was a child using it at the time, but is the petting zoo, where you can actually just pick up and experience models and see what they are and just have a real feel of them, and that's really cool. And yeah, I love this SIG. It's something so different, and yeah, just I hope it continues to grow and flourish. As a dinosaur stampedes at the display, we have Birmingham, who I guess is suitable next to the really wild SIG with the bull as their icon. That sounded really cringe. I'm sorry. I think I've seen their display a couple of times, but it's still a really cool one. I really love the flea with the magnifying glass for you to look through and see it. And then they had like a great selection of World War I stuff at the end. Didn't get a great angle of that just because there was someone there at the time. And obviously I always try not to get in the way of people, but what a fantastic display. West Midlands Police Scale Modelling Club. I don't know why I found that so hard to say. I will say, like, I think there's a couple of favourites on here. So the Gundam in, like, I think it is like 1/72 scale, but huge, like absolutely huge models. I really hope to see Evangelion in that too. But I really love seeing them. That's so cool. I've always wanted like bigger scale Gundam because I think it just puts everything in perspective for me as a 1/72 scale modeler. And then there's just a variety of really unique aircraft, including an absolutely beautiful Super Ednard, the giant Lancaster yet again. And we do have a couple of models on here from a friend of the channel, Sully, and that includes their fairly recent model, which was the Jaguar that they did, which is being used basically in a paintball arena. And I loved being able to see this in person. I was speaking to Sully like all the way through the construction of this, and I just, yeah, it was so cool to see like the finished thing as well. Leicester Models had a really unique section in the middle of their display, which is focusing on the Chernobyl incident as it's reached an anniversary. So everything in sort of the centre of their display onwards was in reference or was used during the course of the Chernobyl disaster. They also had a variety of vehicles, as you will have seen at the start, in reference to Ukraine, and that remains a strong link for the club. They also feature a lot of their comedy within their displays as well, including a lot of minion sort of dioramas and some sort of Aardman animation style as well. They had a giant section dedicated to F4 Phantoms 2, and everything on there is way beyond the skill level that I will ever reach, but it's absolutely amazing stuff. And yeah, Leicester Models are, again, a really friendly club. Always have a good chat with them whenever I see them. I perhaps didn't this time as much because I wasn't feeling super well that day, but yeah, I'm so glad that we have such an amazing stand that always is just so friendly and approachable. RF Burrows Norton, and this is really cool because my dad actually used to work at RF Burrows Norton when he was in the RAF, and I thought this display was wonderful. Again, some really unique ideas on here, including Tank 30 there. And then they did have a traction engine, which I understand they helped design, if I got the story correct. They were talking to someone else, and I was quite limited on time, so I didn't stop around to sort of speak to them, but I might reach out to them to sort of speak to them about the design of it, because it's just absolutely amazing. I mean, look at that. It's so beautiful. It's not something I would necessarily build myself, but actually where I used to live, there used to be like a traction engine meet, and I used to see them all the time. and I would just like feel my house rumble as they went past. And yeah, I thought that was such a beautiful model, so unique, so cool, and I can't wait to see people build them. Oh yeah, and the Thunderbirds refueling scene is incredible. They also have the second display. I'm not entirely sure if this was like a separate club. I think it was just them, but I have featured it here as well. Coventry and Warwickshire have that amazing gendarme in the middle, the J7W, and also have, again, a locomotive. We have seen that spaceship a couple of times. It was going off there, but if you go through my Bolton model show archive, you will see it with full sound on there too. Really love the A-Wing as well, and I did hear someone speaking to them about how they have such a great use of perspective in a lot of like their dioramas with sort of the foliage, and I have to agree that is something that is so prevalent in their displays, is the use of angles and unique views on models. Gloucester here, and I really feel bad because I was going to go to their show, but unfortunately my parents had to rearrange coming up due to a variety of conflicts and my own health, and that means that they're now coming up when IPMS Gloucester show is, so hopefully next year I'll get to go see them, but yeah, fortunately not this year, but I'm really determined to make their show at some point. Really love their displays. I think the first time I saw them, they had like Blood Bowl on here as well, but they continue to have such a unique range on there, including like just the use of like graffiti in modelling is just so cool. I also really liked that RNLI lifeboat, and it is just reminding me that I need to build mine at some point. Can't keep just loving everyone else's and not building my own. Then we have the biggest scale modelling layout, which is Tiny Flying Legends, which is Duxford, but small. And yet, despite being small, it's huge. And apparently this is nowhere near complete, and they want it to be even bigger. And I really hope one day we have basically like the like Milton Keynes Watford Junction layout, and then we have this, and it like basically divides the room, because that would be so cool. I love this. I've always dreamt of having something like this. I don't have the space for this, but I love it. And yeah, I love seeing this grow. I remember the first time I saw this and I just thought, wow, that was really cool. And now it's huge. It's huge. The next couple of displays I don't know a lot about because it's basically like racing cars, motorcycles and hot rods, and I don't know a lot about them, but I always include them because I always say to everyone, like, modeling is for everyone and everyone's always going to have different interests, and any of the skills that are used in a different scale of or different side of modeling is going to be relevant to you as well. So I hope you enjoy sort of the next couple of tables. I don't want to just like pointlessly add narration over the top of them because it's not the area I know super well, but I've tried to sort of include like the different paint techniques and like just vehicles I thought looked cool. So I hope you enjoy. I just want to pop in and say the damage on the diorama on the F1 on Motorsports Cake, the one you can see right in the middle there, it like actually looks like it's moving. It's so incredibly well done. I again did try and take pictures of things I don't think I've taken pictures of before, but I'm sure you'll let me know in the comments. I'm coming back in again just because the Northwest Kart Motorcycle Club was celebrating their 30th, which I think is really cool. Again, like you can tell like they've evolved along with the times and have a variety of like liveries dating to the ultra modern with anime styling to older schemes with really heavy corporate branding. And it's just, yeah, I've just taken pictures of things that I recognize or things I think look really cool, but again, just like all the other stands here, I don't know enough about them, but I just love seeing them. Just for fun modelers, I think we last saw these at Bovington Tank Museum. I really love seeing them. They basically take idioms and turn them into models. Like, they had like a storm in a teacup instead of storm in a teacup. Dessert. They had one for the rivet counters there with the lightning. Speed trap. I just love their stand. Like I can't help it. It's just so cool. And then they do things that are just really funny and silly, like the filming of the moon landing. The most unique thing I think on here that I hadn't seen before was like the doodle bug, the V1 being eaten by a giant British mosquito. The Iron Maiden vinyl though was incredibly cool. I was never into Iron Maiden as a kid. They weren't really heavy enough for me when I was like going through my metal stage. But like that was just such a cool representation of like the vinyl artwork being continued out of it. I thought that was awesome. I did really love the moon landing as well, and I love everything on their table, and I think I took pictures of like literally everything at Bovington, so go and check out that video as well. They did have a serious model at the end as well, and they jokingly said like a lot of people just say, oh, I don't get it, and it's like, no, that's an actual serious one. But I took a video of that because I didn't think a photo would do it justice. We head over to Brampton here, and they had a really cool finished product of the Airfix club kit this year, which was the Fligfarben 100, and that's the Vigan with the Tiger Moth, but they did the Vigan with like a cool transparent stand. It just looks awesome. And then they had a collection of Transformers and miniatures in the middle, which are, I think, I want to say trumpeter kits now. They're fairly new. They've actually relatively new come out, but they look awesome. And well, how can we forget Bolton, which start my year every single year because I go to the Bolton Model Show, which is also one of the more northern shows that we go to because there aren't many up north compared to down south. And again, a fantastic display. They had some experimental aircraft over the side as well, which you will have seen the Nat with the adjusted nose and TSR2 and Canberra. And then next door to them, they have the training aircraft SIG, which we will go in and have a look at too. A lot of the stuff you may have seen in previous displays from Bolton, but that doesn't stop you admiring the absolutely exemplary skills on display here, because everything on here just looks fantastic. And look at the Nat, Meteor and Canberra together. Oh, cute. Well, we all know I'm biased to the training aircraft SIG because training aircraft are often used in aerobatic display teams, and they also had one of my favourite aircraft here, which was the Soko G4 Super Gleb. This one was in Serbian markings, and wow, I just love that aircraft, so that made me love the stand even more. They also have some really beautifully painted large-scale Hawks as well, including one in a South African anniversary scheme, which I just have always admired and need to do at some point in 1/72nd. We are at our penultimate club, but there's a couple more things after this, and they had a really cool links on here as well as a fire engine. I didn't quite catch the actual name of it. They were chatting to someone else at the time and showing it off, but it looked really cool, so I've got a picture of it for you to see. Oh, and they had a tank here. That looks familiar to what was in the middle of the hall here. And then our last stand for actual clubs or SIGs is Wisbeach. Wisbeach. I always get confused over the name. We've seen this show a couple of times. We've seen the stand a couple of times, and they do have a one-piece ship on display there, a couple of tracks and engines, and then a couple of unique sort of wildlife pieces over to the side, and that's what really captured my imagination on their stand today. Now, I said that we were done on clubs and SIGs, but there was more. So obviously this is Keymodel World Live, and part of Keymodel World is the magazines that they have, including the Airfix magazine, the Airfix Model World. And these creators, so Kevin Maxer, as we're seeing here, and then Gary Tobias, these are all people who have made stuff for Airfix Model World. And it's so cool to see these models that you might have seen in the magazines actually up close and personal. And I really recommend, if you go to Keymodel World next year, to head over to these tables and have a look at the things that you will have seen in articles. Some of them will have their articles out there as well for you to see, but the level of detail, the quality, the workmanship, and there's every single subject here. Like you can see here, there's a couple of tractors, farmyard equipment, armed forces, aircraft, sci-fi. There's literally every single thing you can imagine here, all to like the top of the top standard. And don't let that put you off modelling. It's really easy to see basically these legends of our hobby and think, God, I'm not that good. But babes, I'm not that good. I'm really not that good. And yet I do this as my hobby, and part of the hobby is YouTube. Like, modelling is for everyone, and the only person you have to be happy with is yourself, and anyone who says otherwise is wrong. Also, this T45 scheme is beautiful, and I wish I had done that instead of the one I ended up doing. Yeah, you should always go check them out, and they are really approachable people too. I actually ended up speaking to, I think it was Dave Oliver right at the end. We stood chatting for quite a while, just in general about modelling, about some of the things on their stand, and kind of about just how great the hobby is and how it's for everyone. Now, as we approach the end of this video, I hope you subscribe to the channel and like the video as well. And once you have finished watching Chris Jones and Dave Oliver's work, there is a little outro by me, which is my thoughts on the show. After having gone to the show, I literally filmed it as I got home, collapsed onto the sofa, and just had a little talk about what I experienced, what I thought of the show this year, what was good, and also just how bad my journey was to get there. But yeah, this is our last stand, which is Dave Oliver. I hope you really enjoyed everything you've seen in this video today. If you want to support the channel more, you can become a channel member as well. Just hit the join button down below, and make sure to like the video and share it with your friends. And with that, I'll let you enjoy the rest of this stand and the models on display here, including the new Airfix kit, before you listen to my outro. Yeah, so I am just back from the NEC. It was a nightmare journey, like both ways, to be fair. And my neck is kind of blue. This head eye is just bleeding constantly. So yeah, the train this morning got delayed. So like literally like it was meant to be like 2 cross-country units, so 8 carriages, and one of them broke. So it was really packed. And then on the way home, we ended up getting home like something like an hour and a bit late. I think we were meant to be home by like 7:30, or at least at the station by 7:30. And we ended up being at the station by, I think we left the station at like 8:30. So it was an hour late. I think it was more than that, to be honest, but not great. So very tired. As for the day, it's interesting. So I spoke to a lot of traders, and they all seem to say that it was really good. Most of them have said that like they made more than they did last year. A couple I've spoke to said that they made the same as last year, which is still fine. Like it's enough for them. It's viable. All of the model clubs that I spoke to seemed to be very positive. Like this is one of their like iconic shows of the year. It's one of the ones they look forward to, one of the ones they really want. I didn't really speak to any of the train people because I don't know you guys. So if any of you here, let me know, what did you think of the show? Because that's what I think really matters. This show, when it first launched, was huge. Like, go and watch my first ever tour of it. It was a very different show in my opinion. It was much bigger, much bolder, I think. It had like much more IRL stuff there, like you literally had a train. This year they had, I think it was a chieftain tank, so they still had stuff, but it's not to the same scale in my opinion. And it was a smaller hall this year, but last year's hall wasn't full. I don't know what's going on there. I know the first year they were asking people at Bolton to attend, but I don't know if it's just that they kind of have got in the flow of it now, they know what their size is, because it felt full. It didn't feel like there was empty space, it didn't feel like there was wasted space. The layout was much better this time, whereas last year I definitely felt like the layout wasn't super, and there were some really dark bits in some of the halls, which was not good for the modelers. So, do I think this was a good show? Absolutely. I definitely was like a lot slower than usual because my health is still not good, but it was really uplifting to speak to so many of you and have so many of you notice me missing, and I get really overwhelmed anytime you guys like just ask me how I am, ask me like, you know, what's happening, if I'm okay, and I'm deliberately choosing to not talk to even some of my closest friends about what's going on right now, but just know that I really appreciate it and it really means a lot. Like, not being in work right now is really hard for me. I am a creature of habit, and it's taken me a long time of being off to like go, okay, and now I need to put my health first and not be logging in and not be checking stuff, and I'm getting there, but it's gonna take some time. But just want to say, like, I really appreciate all of you. If I was like short of any of you a little bit, or if I came across a bit weird, like, it's just how I am at the moment. I'm really sorry. But I try to be as talkative and lovely as I can be, even know what's going on. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Leave all the comments down below. Let me know what you thought of this show, because I know some of you will have opinions. And with that, see you later. Bye.
Thank you so much to all of my to get to Advanced Kit. You all helped make this possible. But a special shout out goes to my Advanced Kit Club members, including Taggers 365, Star Trek, Props and Models, Bobby G, Bob and Genevieve Albridge, David Barber, Jeff's Dioramas, the two longest subscribers at this tier, which is Explosive Water and Crazy Lucha, and someone who I met today, Daphne Doug. Thank you so much. Your support all means the absolute world to me. If you like what you've seen here today, make sure to subscribe to my channel to be kept up to date with the latest and greatest videos. And, well, there's a recommended video here just for you. Have a lovely day wherever you are. Bye, 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 bye.